Today we're going to talk about skies and how to make them look a little bit better. So this is kind of the typical shot that you'd get outside, single exposure. We got some problems with it. So the sky is pretty washed out, so you don't have the deep blue color that you would expect with the sky, but then at the same time, the car is almost completely in shadow. It doesn't help matters that this car is actually pretty dark in color. So here's how I would go about kind of fixing this and what I would do as an edit for this. But really the main focus, we want to get this sky looking a lot better. So if you take photos outside during the day, how you can get a little bit better result. First thing that we're going to do is I always start with the things that are most kind of distracting to me, and right off the bat, the ship being crooked is kind of a big thing. So we'll just bring this in a little bit and we'll just rotate this, get it about where we need it, hit enter to apply that. So now that's kind of the frame that we're working with. So the next thing I would do is I would pull down a graduated filter. So we'll just pull this straight down. Actually, before we do that, here's a good tip. If you click on this and then click one of these buttons, it'll reset it. You can change that back and then go ahead and pull that down. That way you don't have your previous adjustments applied to your layer. So we'll just bring this down. Basically what we're going to do with this is just affect the sky. So maybe to get some of that blue back, we'll pull this down some. We'll pull the exposure down. That'll give us some more blue, and maybe we'll pump up the saturation just a little bit. And then I think we want to do the same thing down here, but we don't want the saturation. We actually want a little bit less saturation, and we don't want that blue color in there. So I think we're good there. You can also, let's do this. Let's pull up the shadows a little bit. Actually, let's click here. That way we're affecting the whole image. Let's pull our shadows up. Let's pull our highlights down. That way we get a little bit even tone, more even tone here. As you can see, we were able to recover a lot of the car, and doing that also helped out our sky quite a bit. So we were able to get rid of that harsh sun that's coming in this direction. We no longer have a highlight clipping warning, and we were able to recover a lot of that stuff from the car. I think the only other thing I would do is maybe bump up the clarity just a little bit. Now we can open the image in Photoshop. One thing that I really like to do with skies that I think makes them look really good, if you make a new layer, that's Command J as a shortcut. And then I did a video tutorial quite a while ago about the Nick set of plugins, and one thing that I really like to do with that is I think the skies look really good with this kind of recipe. So I go to Silver Effects Pro, and then over here as one of their presets, they have this thing called High Structure Harsh. And so I click on that, just leave everything else in here. You can play with the different options. Honestly, we want the sky to be a little bit darker, so the gray actually works really well for that. So we're just going to click OK, and then once this loads, we have a really nice black and white image. Not really what we're looking for, but the magic comes over here when you go to the blending modes. So if you go all the way to the bottom and change this to luminosity, you can see you got a lot more detail in the sky, and it got rid of some of that kind of fake blue color from the the gradient filter that we put on before. So that's kind of before and that's after. So it just helps darken that down. It helps chisel out the clouds a little bit more. As a side benefit on this particular image, it actually helped the ship look a little cooler, I think. It added some clarity into that. If you wanted to get your sky a little bit darker blue, the other thing you could do is come into your hue and saturation adjustments. You could go into the blues and you could bring up the saturation some, and you could also bring down the lightness, and then you can also do that same thing with the cyans. So you can bring up that and bring down that a little bit. And then with our car, we probably don't want that to affect it. So we would get our brush with a black brush, switching to black using the X key. You could paint over that. And then kind of the last step that I would do is just make a merged copy. And then something I like to do is you can go into the camera raw filter again. And this is a nice place to just put in you could do a quick vignette. The other thing you could do is if your car needs brightened up a little bit, you could pull one out over that and then just brighten it up, maybe get rid of some of those highlights and maybe pull out some shadows. So, I mean, quick and easy, before, after. But I think this shot in particular could have really benefited from a circular polarizer to cut through a lot of these reflections. That's something that you get when you shoot in direct light, direct harsh light. You're going to get a lot of reflections in the side of the car, and that'll help cut some of that down. But just wanted to do a quick video on how to quickly get a little bit more dramatic sky in your images. So hopefully you like this. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I'd appreciate if you like, and if you don't already, hit that subscribe button. Also, if you have any suggestions for future videos, by all means, either leave them below or shoot me a message. Thanks.